Hickok 45 doing a little slam firing. If you don't know what that is, I'll explain it to you. Because this is a Model 12 and you can slam fire. Yes, you've been requesting a Model 12 video for quite a while now, and I'm sorry it's taken us so long, but you know, we just can't get to everything right away as much as we'd like to. So anyway, we appreciate the help we're getting to acquire a lot of firearms and get them here at the compound and borrow them and whatever the situation might be. And budsgunshop.com is a major player in that, so we hope you you support Bud's Gun Shop. Go to their website and look at all the cool stuff they've got there. Okay, and also while you're at it, go to the description and click on the link to the NRA, the Hickok 45 page, and join if you're not a member. Please help with the gun rights movement and join at a discount. Okay, you'll be glad you did, and everybody will. Now, what do I have? Like I said, a Model 12, and it is really cool. And you know, I had never owned one. Can you believe that? An old guy like me just never had owned a Model 12. But when I was getting into shotguns, defensive shotguns in the 70s, and it was in the early 70s, I did buy a Winchester, but it was the Model 1200, and you've seen it in a video here, that exact firearm. I also had a high standard, made a what they called a riot shotgun, kind of in this configuration. I had one of those. I liked these. I have liked these for a long time, this sort of shotgun. But the Model 12 was, there were millions of them around, I guess, but there were no new ones being made, and I wasn't quite, well, I wasn't nearly as knowledgeable back then about all the various firearms models, so I got the 1200, seemed pretty cool. Anyway, the Model 12 came before the 1200, and guess what year it came into being, more or less? You're right, 1912, and was manufactured up through, well, 1964 in terms of general, you know, being produced in big numbers. I think you could still get one special order all the way up until around 2006 or something. You know, they were still making some of them by special order, but by and large it was a shotgun that was made until 64, and it is pretty cool. We'll talk more about that. It does offer the slam fire feature. And it and the Ithaca, there were some others that offered that. Not a lot of them did. Of course, the Model 97 did. And that's one reason well, that's not the reason, but I have it out here because that's kind of the daddy, not the granddaddy, I guess, it's the daddy of the Model 12. Mr. John Browning came up with that, of course. And you've seen the video on that, I'm sure. And I would go look at it if you have not. And that was 1897, of course. But then as it got into the 1900s, well, it was Remington, I think, and Ithaca made a pump shotgun that did not have the exposed hammer. And the hammer is okay, but it's a little bit of a nuisance. You know, the one reason I had never owned one of these until recently was let's get the off here. Was the hammer and the bolt coming back into your face and your eyeball and all that. It always bothered me a little bit. But now from a historical standpoint, I mean, they're extra cool, right? Well, Ithaca and Remington had made models that were a little more sleek, and they were like this. It was all enclosed. And Winchester went about, you know, we need to make one of those, even though that was a very popular shotgun, that 97, but it was beginning to lose sales to those others. And so I don't know that John Browning actually, I mean, he was alive, but I don't think he was in on like revising that. There was a guy named Johnson, I forget his name, first name, but an engineer for Winchester, and he pretty much came up with this, and they went to this. So it's kind of a mixture of a John Browning and, you know, Johnson design here, and it was extremely popular. Based on what I have read, it was considered maybe better than the Remington. I think the Remington was maybe a Model 10. I'm not sure about the Ithaca, but they were fine shotguns. But this was really a desirable shotgun for the times. It's very solidly built. This is back when he took a bar of steel, a block of steel, and milled it out to create that receiver. And that is you know, time-consuming, expensive process. It's all, forged, milled steel, and unlike what is done today in so many cases. So that's why in 1964 Winchester had to, I guess they had to, but they made some major shifts there with several of their firearms. Hence the reason a pre-64 Winchester is so collectible. Whether it's one of these, whether it's a Model 70, whether it's a lever gun, pre-64 has created a cult following because it's back when they made them the way they used to make them, mostly out of steel and milled steel, tool steel, a lot of hand fitting and all that kind of thing. Labor costs got really high in the 60s, and they had to scramble for other ways to build them. So that calls for new designs, and a lot of those new designs, get a lot of cursing. If you've been around the firearms world very long, you know that phrase pre-64 carries a lot of weight. Okay, with Winchester anyway, and other firearms. You never know when a firearm's going to change. I always joke about, I may have a couple of Glocks I don't really need to keep, but someday, it could be next year. Glock stops, or whoever, SIG or M&P, where they stop doing something, or they start doing something that's, with all their handguns, that's a little annoying, and nobody really likes it. But in the interest of safety, quote unquote, or government ruling, they have to start doing something different that we don't like. And then guess what would happen? See, if they did that next year, 2018, then all of a sudden, guess what would be collectible? Pre-18 Glocks, like pre-64 Winchesters. Okay, so a little lesson there. You never know what's going to happen that's going to make something collectible, do you? But these are really fine old shotguns. They made, I think, around 2 million of them. They were very instrumental in World War I. A lot of these are made in the trench gun configuration, which is, I guess, about this length, with a heat shield, bayonet lug, and the short barrel. Other than that, the same firearm. There were some made, a lot of them made in the riot gun configuration, I read, that is kind of this gun right here, basically. It's without the bayonet lug or the heat shield. I don't really like heat shields myself. I still don't see a real serious purpose for them, but maybe there is. And I'm not sure whether this one was cut down. I got this in Tulsa. I bought this one. This is mine at the Tulsa Gun Show in whatever it was, this spring when I was out there. And I think the fella told me, and I don't know, it's been a long time now, I've been shooting, I forget whether it was actually cut down. I think it was cut down probably, if it wasn't a riot model. It doesn't have the bayonet lug, so it would not have been a trench gun, of course. Those command a high price. This was just normal price, wasn't that expensive. The guy was really good, gave me a pretty good deal on it. He was a viewer, and all that. So I was happy to find it. Like some other firearms I've discussed, I had my radar out for one because we've had so many requests for it. I love pump shotguns, and it's a classic, so I wouldn't mind having one of those, except, same old thing, I didn't necessarily want one with a 30-inch barrel or 28-inch barrel, where I'm not a hunter. But in terms of a defensive size shotgun, then I can always find a use for that. I've already been using it to trim trees, and it would be a good defensive shotgun. I mean, there it is, good old pump, Model 12. Heavily built, very well made. This is back when they locked the bolt would lock up, in the receiver. Whereas once they started going to the alloy, some companies to the alloy receivers, which are fine, then you have a barrel extension that comes into here, and the bolt needs to lock up on it. So you got steel locking up on steel instead of steel locking up on aluminum alloy. And that's what they did with the 1200, the one that came after this. It replaced the Model 12. It was an alloy frame. I had one of those, like I said, I bought it in the 70s, and it was replaced by the Model 1300, and I've not had that one, I guess. But I just like pump shotguns. I'm sorry, I'm hopeless. And look at all this pretty Federal ammo. The last batch I ordered, I decided to get some, just for variety, something different. These are clay target loads, competition, so I should never miss with these, right? So gold medal, I think these are a little bit higher dollar round. They're basically the same load, I think. I can't tell a lot of difference, but I like those cases. They're kind of interesting. Don't see many of that color. Now this loads, should have shown you there. the way it loads, the follower there, I thought it was broken when I first started loading this thing when I brought it home from Tulsa, because the first round or two I put in there, it came popping back at me, and I was, oh, okay, well that sort of catches it, but they were wanting to come out and they weren't really caught. Well, they catch on the follower. That's supposed to be that way. There's no other gizmo to hold the case in there. Okay, it's kind of interesting. And let's just go, we've got 6 I think in there, so let's take a couple more shots. So yeah, slam firing, I've shown you that before, but we have a lot of new people every day and every week, is when you can hold the trigger down. You don't really have to keep pulling it. It's not fully auto because it's a pump gun, but if you hold the trigger down and fire like this, let's put one in, it keeps firing. Watch, now I haven't let off the trigger, I'm still squeezing it. I'm gonna go for the cowboy. There we go. The only problem is you tend to want to pull down low left. So if it was up something close, it'd be a lot easier to hit something with it, and if I practice with it. But that's what slam fire means. You just hold that trigger and boom, 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 boom. Okay, and that was kind of an attractive feature for a shotgun that's used in combat. All right, and you never know when you might need that. So interesting. Now when I put this first one in, there you go, see how it catches? It's the follower that it catches on. I mean, they're fairly smooth to load, but I've had a few jump right back out at me if you're not aware of that. Like right there, see, it's not held in there, and that one, see, both of them came popping out of there. So you just have to be aware of that, I guess. And I'd never owned one, or I would have known that. That's a very distinct characteristic, I guess you'd say. Yeah, it makes you look a little uncoordinated when you're loading. I'm actually loading with the wrong hand. I actually load shotguns with my left hand generally, so it's a little more awkward for me anyway. But there we go. Another one in there. Now I'm gonna take care of this garbage can because it just needs it. Don't you think? I probably should top it off. Let's do that too. Safety on. Let's put another one in. I'm a little more coordinated with my left hand and fingers like that. I don't know why, even though I'm right-handed. Okay, let's just see if we can disturb him a little bit. Okay. Oh, I love it, that poor guy. You know, I was not slam firing that time. I don't know, maybe because I've shot more, but I can almost do better if I'm just pulling the trigger, because in that instant, you know, think about it. It's like having a bad trigger. This becomes your trigger when you're slam firing. So you need to be ready for whatever you're doing. So you pull it back out, and if you have a tendency to do that, you know, that's your trigger. That's triggering the round. So you want to practice that a little bit. I'd rather use the trigger myself. Let's shoot some more of these. Okay, so what did I neglect to tell you about it? Anything important? Isn't that a neat corncob slide there? I love that foreign. It's a pretty cool old rifle. Reminds me a little bit of the Ithacas. See, there I go. I might just switch around here and load with my left hand since I've shown you how to do that. I'm more coordinated with my left fingers is what it comes down to. See, I'm not sure why that is. I guess I'm right-handed and left-fingered. Now there's what happens if you really want to count your rounds on this, because you start shoving in that number, whatever, 7 I guess it is, then see what happens, they want to come out on you. So then you end up with a coordination test here of sorts. There you go, let the follower hold it in and you're okay though. All right, let's put one on the paper over here. Now you know what's going to happen. There's going to be one big hole somewhere. It's from the wad. Smoke a little pot here while we're at it. Nice. Whoa. Is there anything more fun than shooting a shotgun? Not much. Not much. This is kind of what I do when I'm out trimming trees. I just grab a big pocket full, or I've got a little shoulder pack, and just walk around trimming limbs that need to be trimmed. I mean, doesn't everybody do that? You might not want to try that in your neighborhood. Okay, That one didn't catch. All right. What else we have? Oh yeah, a couple more 2 liters. That was nice. Oh, there's one over there.